Alright, so thank you all for waiting on me. Thank you all for waiting on me today. Alright, so I can see a majority of you up there on the screen. It's not surprising to me at all. And I can see some of you are in here. Alright, so there may be stuff in the way. Just expect that, okay? Just because there's gonna be stuff in the way does not give you, an all out for you not to stand in the room or whatever. Okay? Because I can only be as responsible as I can be with stuff. And I just want to warn you of that up front. Just because there are going to be people sitting in that room up there, and just because it's an option, it doesn't mean that I am going to be standing here and speaking to you, all of you from that over there. If you can, it depends upon, how many people are in this room. And so, everyone will come physically. Okay, and this is what I expect. Because it's a whole deal for things to work out. So that I don't have to be in the same predicament with this amount of people here and then that amount of people over there. However many people can fit in this room physically will be in here. So how it'll work is, when I want to have an Amenten meeting, everyone will come here to this house physically. Okay? And then people will come into the sunroom. We'll see how many people that can come into the sunroom. Based off of the amount of people that can be in here, if we get filled up with space and there's not enough people, then the rest of you can go up on that screen over there. Okay? I am not going to open the door and do this and have this wide, open arena thing. Is more freeing, number one, and you are really taking up space that you don't need to take up standing in the kitchen, standing around. It's really just rude and inconsiderate and silly, and you're in my house and you're seriously doing that just so that you can stand up and hear me talk, with some of you being way in the back, probably not being able to see me as well as you should, as well as it would be ideal for you to see me, which is, I'm sure, really bothersome and irritating for you. This is filming me, it's not even filming me, it's just so annoying. It's really irritating. For all of you to stand there and just hear me talk and not be able to see me, and it's tiring to stand up, like physically stand up, or however many chairs are available, and it's also really silly. It really shouldn't be the case where people should have to, just stand up directly outside of the room. And the other thing too is that there's only so much space that this room can provide. So it may be a long process in future, but I'm not going to start that camera until all the little details can get figured out. So you all need to be on the ball with it because, I can't, there's only so much halfway stuff you can have with these meetings, and I'm getting, frankly, of stuff happening that is not ideally what I would like, because of, my super inabundant and impurified, tainted, and discontent mindset and outlook on life that I'm living with right now, which I can do certain things to change. However, it is what it is, and I feel what I feel. And because of that taintedness and abundance, things have to be exactly as I want them to be. Now, if I felt like I had so much, if this phone was less than purified, if things worked out differently, then I would be a little bit more fine with things going off or not going to plan or not running smoothly. Like, it's okay. I'd be more logical, or not logical, more adaptable, more understanding, more willing to cope. However, that balloon wears so thin, and I'm not going to try to make myself feel what I don't feel already. And yeah, things have to go to plan, and it has to be really the way that I want it to be and the way that I see it, which is people in this room present to learn and hear the information that they need to hear, and also people up there sitting on the screen, as well for the options, so that I can have all of my Amenten engaging in and being a part of this Amenten meeting. So that it's not just the people that can come in here, and then I have to. It all lies on the video, and then those people can just, oh well, I don't have to come here because I can just see the video, and so that it limits the amount of people who come here or want to come here, and it's really, really silly, and I end up having to film a video, which I prefer standing up here and talking to all of you as opposed to just doing a video where I'm looking into the camera and addressing you, because those videos, I feel like I could really put on my YouTube channel publicly. When I do this, I feel like, wow, I'm having these opportunities, I'm producing this content, but it's really a pity that I'm not publishing it because I want to be totally free and liberated with what I'm saying. That's a whole rant that I don't want to go on about. I did hear some comments and quite a few questions after the last Amenten meeting that I had on Sunday, which was your weekly announcements. Now, I am aware that it went for a very, very long time, and I spoke for quite a bit of time. And, I did have a lot to say, and I'm not going to try to hold it in unless I just don't want to talk about that. Because I've explained my reasons, and that's something else I don't want to go on about, and I'm feeling those sensations again because I'm pacing around the room, and whenever I pace around the room, it means that I am holding stuff in that I need to sit down and deal with stuff, internal stuff. Anyway, so, that did go for a long time. Just know that those announcements will continue to be reinforced over again in the weekly announcements, be it in written form, on community posts, through email, or in videos, depending upon, if Susan, Linda, or Daniel either make videos or write the announcements out in an email, number one. Number two, if I have an Amenten meeting with all of you. Okay. Now, this is where I have to be. Okay. So, That's that. So, just know that that's the way it is, and so you don't have to memorize all the information, the announcements that I give at my weekly announcements meeting, because it's not going to be a video, it'll be a meeting, even though it'll be recorded anyway, for you to see and get that information again and refer back to that. Just know that it will be reinforced in the daily announcements. That doesn't mean that you can just, sort of not listen or not pay attention or not give a darn about the weekly announcements. And, because that's the information of what is going to be going on for that week. Okay, so I want to make this really, really quick. Okay. Okay. You need to hold on. I will be back. Okay. Occasionally I will have to walk out of the room. Just know that when I do, it isn't because I am abandoning all of you on purpose. It is because of something I need to take care of. And I won't compromise this meeting for that. So it may happen again at the moment where I'm going through important information. I just have to leave and take care of what I need to take care of and then come back. Now, today, just a life hack. I don't want to go through what I have nothing to say about. In sociology today, because I am taking classes in college, we looked at deviance, so the idea that people rebel or people commit crimes, or there's sanctions which are positive, reward or a punishment for doing something. We looked at that, we explored that. In composition, we looked at research essays and identifying how research reports are set up. Works cited pages, information, all that. But the one thing I do want to say about today is this harkens back to what I said at the very beginning of January. I did a live stream about my Amenten plans from January through June of 2023. I did take a considerable amount of time on that live stream where I spoke about a relationship that I would have with a teacher this semester, who would be my music fundamentals and piano teacher as well. His name is Paul Court, Professor Court. Some of you have heard me speak about him. I brought him up on Sunday's meeting when I was speaking about difficult transits, and I got off on that tangent, which is only the perspective of all of you. I will not apologize for speaking about that. Sometimes things just come up, and I feel like I want to share that. I'm not going to be afraid to do that. Well, anyway, I spoke about him, and I acknowledged that he was in the hospital due to severe back pain, and I said send healing prayers or, thoughts, loving thoughts and prayers his way. Really makes a difference. As especially we're going to see with Saturn moving into Pisces. Rebecca Goldsmith was talking about Saturn and Pisces and how loving thoughts or loving prayers can better someone's life and really help them out. There's just not much that I can say. So she was talking about loving thoughts and loving prayers. Basically, Saturn's heading into Pisces, and unfortunately there's a whole range of themes about that. But anyway, today, with the music fundamentals class, the chair of the department was there in the room trying to fill in for Professor Court. So when I walked in, there were people in the room, and he was just standing there. He was the choir director. He's the choir director at DMAC. I was in concert choir last semester, the fall semester, with him. And so he was there. And, I'll get into some stuff, about him a little bit later on. However, he did say that Professor Court was on a kind of leave, an absence of leave, and he doesn't know when he will be returning to teach. He is confused, and he doesn't know the reason for why he is gone and why he's been missing his classes, why his classes have been getting canceled, why piano lessons have been getting missed and canceled. So that's what's been happening ever since February. This month, it sort of started out where he was gone on Friday, February 3rd, because he had something to do or whatever. I didn't have my piano lesson that day, and then just, that next week, he was also gone, February 8th. Wednesday, February 8th, he sent out an email to me and then, people in general, which was really grammatically incorrect and lacking in clarity for what he was trying to say. And I couldn't understand what the message was. It was unclear what he was saying, and it really looked like he was in a rush for typing out that email and sending it. And then the following week, so on Tuesday, February 14th, Valentine's Day, when my throat was super phlegmy, I could barely talk. And so I went to the room at the proper time that I have music fundamentals, which is 11:15. And I didn't see anyone there. I saw the light on. There were a couple people in there, an older student or whoever. But, I'm not talking about, the students weren't there. I know, no student was there. And I found out from somebody who was in the room, class is canceled. Professor Court is sick, and then, somebody was coming near the classroom and then said that he was in the hospital last week. This was last week because of severe back, pain, medical stuff. And then today, is when the planet Uranus in astrology, which relates to sudden changes, sudden events that happen out of the blue, unexpected things that you never knew would happen. All of a sudden things are normal, and then boom, something happens you didn't expect it. That was how it was today. And I'm looking at, because the relationship that I have to, Professor Court, in this case that I spoke about, is a bird. I am releasing this bird out to fly in a certain direction. And at first I had hopes that the bird would go in this direction, would go to where it was supposed to. I was confident. I released the bird on January 10th, which is when that was the first class that I had with, Professor Court as the teacher, who was very sociable, outgoing, fun-loving, who would be an engaging, good teacher for me, so I thought, and for other students, so I thought. I released the bird. It started flying really strongly. It sort of took a little bit of time to pick up the pace. This is a metaphor to say that, the first couple of days it takes some time for people to get introduced and for things to start moving, and you're introducing yourself, introducing the class, the content, and it's a little bit more chill those couple of days because you're just orienting yourself with the class. You're just getting into it, setting things up, and beginning to learn the material and grasp the material and what the class is going to be, basically. And so the bird was a little wobbly at first trying to get going, and then it, as it was just starting to get going, and then the bird started to veer off a little bit, just a little bit, and then it just went right back on course, unstable, wobbly, but continuing to move on course, still fine. Then the bird started swerving over here, coming back, going over here, coming back, and then just did like kind of like this. It was just moving all over the place. And then the bird started to lose focus. It started to then start to veer off a little bit, start to move off more so, move off this direction. Let's say move a little bit forward, and then off, still kind of moving forward, and then boom. It went that way, and the bird is nowhere to be found. The mother of the bird does not know where that bird has flown off, and she is confused, and she is perplexed, and she is concerned and disappointed in the bird, and has almost given up on the bird entirely, and it's nowhere to be found. That is to say that, so the class started, so the whole trajectory, if this is the end of my relationship with this person for now, my whole, experience started off day one with this professor getting into, himself, sharing aspects of himself, stories of himself, which was a little strange, I have to say, sharing about his wife and how he met his wife, some crazy story. But that was the first day, and that was supposed to be lighter, so that was fine, people getting to know each other, and he's trying to introduce himself to his students, so that was fine. And then on the second, he said, which is not, he didn't walk his talk, he didn't promise what he has promised to be a good teacher, and he said, I'm of the view that the teacher is the one who makes it so the student can learn, sets them up for how they view a certain subject matter, is responsible ultimately for their learning. And I agreed with that, still seeing the other side of that, which there was some kind of really mature part of me that was like, okay, well, you're not acknowledging the other side of that issue, which is, well, the teacher teaches the material, and yet the students also pay attention. The students also need to apply themselves. They need to invest in the course, on the material. and get serious and be diligent, responsible, and do their work. So that wasn't acknowledged, and he said, "Oh well, we're going to hit the ground running," which he did. On the second day, he got right into it, and then it was almost, here's another metaphor for you. So we landed on the ground, we're running, we have a target, we're going somewhere, and then we start to veer off over here. And then we start to go off over this direction. And then we come back to where we're supposed to go, but we want to go over here. And then we come back, and then we want to go over here. We kind of start to veer more off the path, and then we abandon it entirely. Leave it behind. That's what it was like. That's what it was like. So he started teaching, I could follow what it was good, then he started writing all these confusing things on the whiteboard I didn't understand. People started asking questions way beyond the level that people were at and where the course was at in terms of content of what people were learning. And he encouraged questions, even though, I say that in past tense, he encouraged questions, even though it was way beyond where people were in the class, which was, really good. He acknowledged that. That class was fairly good, educational. I, learned some things, took some things away from that. I was still confused, and yeah, it was, still fine. And then he started to lose focus.